No one compares you to someone else unless they've already started emotionally checking out of you. You're sitting there, listening to her talk about another guy. Maybe it's subtle at first. He's really focused. He knows what he wants. Or worse, direct comparisons. Why can't you be more like him? And you feel it. That tightness in your chest. That quiet anger mixed with insecurity. You start questioning yourself. Am I not enough? Am I doing something wrong? So you try harder. You become more available. More attentive. You adjust your behavior just to match this invisible standard she's holding over your head. But somehow, it never feels like enough. The more you try, the more she pulls away or keeps comparing. Here's what's actually happening, and it's not what most people think. When someone compares you to another person, it's rarely about the other person. It's about how they feel when they're with you versus how they imagine they would feel with someone else. That comparison is emotional, not logical. In the beginning of any connection, there's curiosity, uncertainty, and a bit of tension. That creates dopamine. You don't fully know each other, so every interaction feels like a small reward. But over time, especially if one person becomes too predictable, too available, or too invested, that emotional tension disappears. Now the brain isn't chasing anymore. It's comfortable. And for some people, comfort doesn't feel exciting, it feels boring. So what do? They start looking outside the relationship for stimulation. Not necessarily physically, but mentally. They notice other people. They imagine alternatives. And then the comparisons begin. This is where attachment styles come in. If she leans avoidant, too much closeness starts to feel suffocating. Your consistency doesn't feel safe, it feels like pressure. So she creates distance by focusing on what you lack instead of what you bring. If she's more anxious, she might compare to trigger a reaction. She wants reassurance, validation, proof that you care. But instead of asking directly, she uses comparison as a tool to pull emotion out of you. Either way, it creates a toxic loop. You feel judged, so you try to prove yourself. The more you try to prove yourself, the less natural you become. And the less natural you are, the less attractive you feel to her. So she compares more. And now you're trapped in a cycle where you're performing instead of being. Here's the part most people won't admit. If someone constantly compares you to others, it means they don't fully respect you in your current position. And you've probably allowed that dynamic to form. Not intentionally, but through over-investing, over-explaining, and tolerating things that should have been checked early. When you accept comparison without pushing back, you silently agree that you're competing for their approval. And the moment you enter competition in your own relationship, you've already lost your power. Because attraction doesn't grow from proving your worth. It grows from someone recognizing it without you needing to fight for it. There's also a deeper truth here that's uncomfortable. Sometimes, people compare because they settled for you emotionally, even if they don't consciously admit it. You were safe, available, reliable, but not the person they felt intense desire for. And over time, that internal conflict starts leaking out through comparison. That doesn't mean you're not valuable. It means you were placed in a role that doesn't match your actual worth. Now let's talk about the difference in how men and women typically process this. Most men, when compared, take it as a problem to solve. They think, tell me what's wrong, I'll fix it. They go into performance mode. Improve income, improve behavior, improve effort. But attraction isn't a checklist. Women, on the other hand, often communicate dissatisfaction indirectly. Not because they're trying to confuse you, but because they're expressing a feeling, not a clear request. When she compares you, she's not handing you instructions. She's revealing a shift in how she perceives you. And perception is much harder to fix than behavior. You can change what you do overnight. You can't force someone to feel differently overnight. This is where most people break themselves. They keep trying to win back a version of someone who has already changed internally. Now here's the shift you need to understand. The moment someone compares you to another person, stop trying to outcompete the other person. That's not your role. Your role is to step back and observe. Why is this happening? What dynamic have I allowed? And more importantly, why am I staying in a situation where I'm being measured instead of appreciated? Because the truth is, the right connection doesn't make you feel like you're constantly being evaluated. It doesn't mean there are no flaws. It means those flaws are discussed with respect, not used as weapons through comparison. You don't build attraction by shrinking yourself into someone else's expectations. You build it by standing firm in who you are, even if that risks losing them. And yeah, that's the part people avoid. Because walking away, or even just emotionally detaching, feels like loss. But staying in a dynamic where you're constantly compared slowly destroys your self-respect. And once that's gone, even if they stop comparing, you won't feel the same anymore. So what do you actually do? You stop reacting emotionally every time comparison happens. No defensiveness, no desperate explaining. You address it calmly, once. You make it clear you're not in competition with anyone. And then you watch their behavior. If it continues, you create distance. Not to manipulate them, but to protect your own mental state. Because someone who values you doesn't need reminders of your worth through other people. They either see it, or they don't. And if they don't, no amount of effort will permanently fix that. At the end of the day, comparison is not just a sign of dissatisfaction. It's a sign of misalignment. And the longer you ignore that, the more you lose yourself trying to become someone you were never meant to be. Sometimes the real problem isn't that you're being compared. It's that you're still trying to win a place where you were never fully chosen.